Hey, Michael Church, Crawl Space Ninja. Today I'm with Alex Linn of Shipshape, and Alex is the founder and CEO of Shipshape, and he's got an interesting story to tell about how he got involved in this industry. And also, we got some things that we want to cover. He's working real close with some major utility companies and things like that. He is a product focus owner, and also he was an engineer at Salesforce. Alex, I just want to thank you for being on. I appreciate it. Where are you located at right now?
Thanks, Michael. It's great to be here. We're in Austin, Texas.
Very good. Very good. So tell me a little bit about your backstory. I believe you mentioned before that you were at a home in a crawl space that you made you sick, and you started using that to help you start this company. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure. It's an interesting story because we didn't know for years and years that what was making me sick was the mold in the crawl space. Growing up as a kid, I would stay at my grandmother's house. And I would get asthma attacks when I was young. When I was older, it would be sinus infections. And for years, I thought it was just the dust and the pollen. Well, it turned out that we ended up bulldozing that house because the whole crawl space was just covered in mold.
Oh, wow.
And I actually learned about that after I started working on Shipshape. I got interested in Shipshape because my dad wanted to build technology for energy efficiency and sustainability in the HVAC industry when I was in high school and college. So I learned a lot about these building technologies, started working on Shipshape, and this crawl space problem really caught my attention. It is really interesting, issue that spans across 1 out of 4 homes in America. It's like 26 million homes.
Wow.
And the problem is not just related to, the crawl space getting mold and the wood rotting, which is very expensive damage. It also can lead to infestation and some pretty nasty kind of damage. But the downstream effect of that is a lot of people getting sick. Indoor air quality has become a big focus since we all went through this COVID nightmare. And now people are really starting to realize more that, wait a minute, if that mold's in my crawl space and dust mites are in my crawl space, they're coming in my house. And that's making people sick. It's causing asthma problems. And then if you go one step further, it's a major energy issue.
Right.
It's very inefficient to heat and cool a house with a crawl space that's vented. So I became very curious about this and started studying this back in 2015. And as I did and built this product around helping homeowners and contractors manage these crawl spaces, I then learned about from my aunt who told me, she's like, you're always talking about crawl spaces. Did you know that your grandmother's crawl space had mold in it? I was like, actually, I had no idea. So I thought that was a pretty sort of serendipitous discovery of the crawl space problem and how it actually affected me personally.
Yeah, I'll tell you, that's kind of what got me started. I had asthma as a kid, very similar situation. We lived in homes that had mold and humidity problems and everything else. And that's kind of what started us down our career path too. So it's nice to meet someone like you that has more of a reason for doing something than just creating a business, actually helping people, And speaking of helping people, I shared this with you already. I created a guidebook for homeowners when hiring mold remediation professionals. And I just want to mention that on this video, if you want a copy of that guidebook, I'm going to put a link up above so you can click on that and get a copy of that guidebook if you like, because there is a lot of issues in crawl spaces. But what's even worse is whenever you hire somebody that doesn't know what they're doing to try to address mold, and they make it worse and spread it all inside of your house. So real quick, tell me a little bit about, you are working with you've got some reach politically that I would only dream about. So tell me a little bit about you being able to do some of these R&D projects with these utility companies, because I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, I think it's actually related to the ebook you just mentioned. What we're seeing is that there's a big need for education around this problem. There are some people like yourself who are real experts on understanding mold and understanding the crawl space problem. However, most people lack the awareness. Even the big utilities are trying to figure out how to fix this problem. So one of the things when we looked at this, it is very expensive, as you know, to get your crawl space sealed and put in a dehumidifier and a sump pump. That can be thousands of dollars. And a lot of people just don't have thousands of dollars. So we started thinking about, who could we get to help pay for this project and why? So we talked to healthcare companies about the cost of asthma. We talk to insurance companies about the cost of damage. We talk to utilities companies about managing the electric grid. And what we found is really interesting. You might be hearing about these brownouts and blackouts when we have a really hot summer day or a really cold winter day and people lose electricity. Well, what's happening is literally the electric companies cannot provide enough power to the grid to keep all the lights on. And when that happens, a big part of what's causing it is because they're trying to heat their home in the winter and it's freezing temperatures, colder than we've ever seen. And they're trying to cool their home in the summer, and you have extreme heat waves, and you even have these heat domes. This is a big problem. And as that happens, when your crawl space is vented, you have a crawl space that's open, it's very inefficient to heat and cool it. And making it even worse, it's very uncomfortable in the house because if your feet are on the floor and the floor is cold, we've all had this experience. There's basically no amount of hot air you can blow at a vent at your head to make you feel comfortable.
Right.
It's because your body regulates temperature through your feet and through your extremities. So what happens is these cold winter days, people with crawl spaces are just blasting their heat. They're still uncomfortable. They're still getting sick. And they're wasting a ton of power that the utility needs to be able to give to other people so they can even have their electricity at all. So this, the utility problem is much bigger than just saving some energy. At the homeowner level, it does save energy. So we found that a number of research reports have been done. Southern California Edison is the utility out in Southern California. Advanced Energy is a research organization in the Carolinas. A number of sophisticated players have started to do the research to figure out how much energy does it save the homeowner. And the answer to that is between 18 to 32% of the utilization of your HVAC system. So in other words, you will have to use heating and cooling 18 to 32% less when you seal the crawl space. Now that does not account for the additional electricity you might use for a dehumidifier or a sump pump. But the evidence is now there that it makes your HVAC more efficient to seal your crawl space. But I think what people don't know, what they're just starting to realize, is that these blackouts and brownouts the utilities are struggling with, that is the big problem, that in order to solve that, the utilities are having to build literally a whole new power plant. Southern Company is building a multi-billion-dollar power plant right now to get more power. So it's a very big problem for our society to have to heat and cool houses. And again, we're talking about 1 out of 4 homes that have an open crawl space. It's like trying to heat and cool them with the windows open.
Well, and it kind of goes along with our mission too, about controlling humidity, addressing mold, and creating what we call a worry-free crawl space. And it's interesting that a lot of people in our industry, a lot of waterproofers out there, do not insulate crawl spaces. We even have some of our competitors go as far as to say that the vapor barrier is insulation. Well, the vapor barrier doesn't have any R value. So I'm glad you're bringing this up, because this is one of those things that whenever we're going against a competitor and we're, a few hundred to a few $1,000s more expensive because we're properly insulating and air sealing the crawl space. It's not just about insulation. It's about air sealing. It's about, making sure the ductwork is sealed properly so that the air that the HVAC unit is cooling or heating is making it to the room or the destination that it was intended to go to versus bleeding it out inside of the crawl space. And we had that conversation before we got on camera about what if your ductwork goes through your attic and your attic's 120 to 140 degrees and you're pumping 60-degree air through the ductwork. How much of that 60-degree air is affected by that 120 to 140-degree attic? So that's why air sealing and insulating in a crawl space and in an attic and the ductwork is huge for energy efficiency. But there are no tax credits, no government rebates, nothing to help us as contractors help the homeowner get that stuff done. So it sounds like you're working with these utility companies to try to make that happen. Is that correct?
Yeah, and there's one thing that the utility companies were really surprised about. So in the first order, the energy efficiency for the utilities, but actually when that vent is broken, you're also now going to transmit mold spores from the crawl space into the home. So the academic research that came out and said, in fact, if you have mold in your crawl space, you are at risk of having it in your home. It does transmit through your HVAC. That's largely because those ducts are broken.
Yep.
When we did the program with the second biggest utility in the country, covers a lot of the Southeast. There are a lot of crawl spaces. And what we did with them was we actually had some of our partners, like Crawl Space Ninja, who are waterproofing contractors, give quotes to homeowners. So we went and got these projects quoted to fix the crawl spaces. We then got the crawl spaces fixed, and then we monitored the crawl spaces for 2 years. And we learned a lot in the process. One thing we learned was that, and they literally, a lot of people didn't believe me when I talked about how bad the problem was. I'm sure you've run into this, Michael. A lot of people thought that I was, being dramatic. So to come back and show them that actually, no, 100% of the crawl spaces that we evaluated that had not been sealed were growing mold.
Yeah.
Not like 90%, not like 50%, 100%. All the crawl spaces that hadn't been sealed had some signs of mold growth in them. Okay, so like that was the first aha moment. The next thing we've found out when we fixed them is that there's definitely an effective way to fix them. A lot of people question whether, do I need this white plastic stuff in there? Do I really need to get a sump pump as well? I don't see any water. No, we showed that with several different contractors and many different projects, there is a relatively uniform way to get them fixed right, to control the water, control the humidity. And when you do that, now the home will be in a condition where its mold cannot grow. You keep that humidity level at appropriate ranges, the mold won't grow. And it's something well, but a lot of people question. We tracked the data for a full 2 years. When you seal the crawl space and put a dehumidifier in, it's very effective at controlling the humidity. So you keep the humidity in a safe range. The other thing we found is it makes people a lot more comfortable. Most of the people, a vast majority of the people, when we surveyed them, said that they felt more comfortable in the winter and in the summer in their house, which really goes to show that the energy impact and helping those utilities manage the grid is noticeable. So as we put this program together, very much like you see something like the Inflation Reduction Act providing incentives for heat pumps, you see federal programs like cash for clunkers. Our vision is to work with these big utilities and government officials, and these folks care a lot about the people who live in their communities.
Right.
And they know about people getting sick. They know about the downstream effects of this, and they're trying to figure out how to fix it. It is hard to fix. So we are working with them to try and bring together the contractor industry, the energy efficiency community, the health enthusiast community, to get a program where we get the most affordable way to fix it. And what we found out is when you bring in those subsidies from different areas, the utility might be able to provide a little bit of a subsidy for the insulation improvement. They might be able to provide a little subsidy for managing the electrical use of the dehumidifier. But then the insurance company may also be able to provide a little subsidy, and the government may be able to provide a little subsidy. So we want to pull this together so we really help people afford to get these crawl spaces fixed and here's the important part, make sure that they get the return on their investment.
Right.
We go into a lot of crawl spaces where the work has had to be redone, or where the homeowner thought, they spent basically a big chunk of their life savings to make their home safe and secure. Spent $10,000-$20,000, only to find out that the contractor who went down there last left the thing unplugged, and now it's covered. It was something really simple like that. Or, a raccoon got down there and tore up all the insulation and the encapsulation and little simple stuff like that. But that does cause, both for waterproofing and for HVAC projects, that can cause homeowners to really lose their return on their investment. They thought they were making a smart economic decision. It ends up coming back to bite them. So monitoring the ongoing performance of these projects is really important, and getting the project done right the first time is really important to make sure you get the most bang for your buck. And when we put the subsidies together, to make sure that those go as far as possible.
Well, and it's interesting. I'd like for you to comment on what I'm about to say and use Shipshape to share how it would have fixed or at least alerted this issue. But my oldest son, Asa, he's now working with us and he's doing maintenances. He goes in and maintenance is the dehues and the dehumidifiers and the sump pumps and all that. He goes into this one house. We had encapsulated the crawl space. Everything was beautiful. He gets in there, and there is high wood moisture level, and the humidity is off the chart. He couldn't figure it out, and then come to find out, he crawled around. You know, we do a corner-to-corner inspection when we have people on our maintenance program. So if you're encapsulating your crawl space and your provider does not offer maintenance, you need to have a maintenance program. Someone needs to be down there on a regular basis. But what Alex is going to share with you is also going to be important. So he goes in there. Come to find out, the homeowner hired a person to install a dryer vent. Okay, and they took the dryer vent, knocked out one of the vents that we had sealed, knocked it out, ran the pipe out, never resealed it back, and turned off the dehumidifier while he was down there. We have no idea how long it was like that. So tell me how Shipshape would have at least brought that to the homeowner's attention immediately, if I dare say within a day or so of that happening. So
yeah, well, that story is all too common. And look, I hate to blame the guy who put the dryer vent in. The problem is there are just so many different people coming in your house. They don't always know how everything's working together. That's not their specialty, you know. And I'm sure that guy was trying to do a good job and just didn't understand how the home as a whole system works together. So when we track that, we would be able to see that in the data almost instantly. With the dehumidifier unplugged, we would see that usually it runs and it's no longer running. That's your first alert. Then with the humidity, we'd see that usually the humidity is controlled to a set point of 55. And now it's gone up above 60, 70. That would be your second alert, right? Then the humidity would stay high, and we'd notify you that you've had persistent humidity. Now we definitely know something's wrong. So that, you know, the data-driven alerts would catch that, you know, almost instantly. We would be able to help the homeowner go back to the dryer vent person and or their waterproofer to get that issue fixed. It's relatively simple issues like that end up being, you know, big pains. I think what you said about the maintenance plan is one thing we found out is a lot of people buy this stuff. They kind of know they should probably do maintenance, but they didn't really get educated on it. You know, they were probably overwhelmed when they were doing this project that cost a lot of money. And they said, I'll figure that out later. And next thing you know, like time flies. A year and a half goes by. Okay, that's not that long. Like you look up, a year and a half goes by, but you never went down there to check it. You didn't change the filter. Now you voided your warranty. And the equipment breaks down in half the amount of time it would otherwise live. So it costs you twice as much. That happens all the time. So you've got to, unless you're going to go actually open up your sump pump and dig the sludge out of there and check the impeller, unless you're actually going to go in your dehumidifier crawl space and open the dehumidifier, change the filter, clean the coils, make sure it's okay. Unless you're going to do that yourself, you must pay someone to go down there and do that. Otherwise, that whole investment you made to do the project is at jeopardy. And with the sensors, what we can do is, you know, that person's going to come do maintenance once or twice a year. Well, who's going to be checking it for the 6 months in between?
Right.
You know, unless you're going to go down there after heavy rainstorms. And look, when rain comes, you know, flooding in and extreme temperatures come in, stuff happens. Animals drag stuff in there. You know, we've all kinds of silly stuff we find. A stick fell in the sump pump and jammed it up and it won't run. You know, a rat gnawed through the cable on the dehumidifier. Like, it just, you know, stuff comes up that we could track in real time. And then your maintenance person can make sure that's fixed and your system's always up and running.
Well, and the Shipshape, it's not in the grand scheme of things compared to what the cost of the encapsulation was. It's just a few percent of the total job. You know, it's not a huge expense, and you've got a team there. I believe you give away the first year of monitoring. Explain that if you don't mind, and then after that, how all that works. So if somebody wanted a real person monitoring their system, but they can also use the apps too, if you don't mind sharing that with them real quick.
Yes, Shipshape is basically a product that you can use to connect your sump pump, connect your dehumidifier, and you'd be able to monitor the power use, the humidity, the temperature. You monitor for leak detection. You could use the same Shipshape system to connect your water heater and your HVAC and everything else in your house. But it's very simple. It's a smart plug. You plug the sump pump or dehumidifier into it. There's a sensor that's got double-sided tape on it. So you stick the sensor onto the appliance to track the humidity and temperature and put the little leak detector in. So it's relatively easy to install. We do offer a self-install for DIY enthusiasts who, find it pretty easy to install stuff like this. And we offer self-monitoring. If you don't want to pay for pro monitoring, you can use the app and get alerts. So there is self-install and self-monitoring. And in our experience, you almost always end up needing a pro at some point along the way. Even if you're able to put a lot of this project together yourself, at some point you need a pro. So we recommend getting Shipshape through a pro. When you get it through a pro, you get a little bit better pricing on it. You get it professionally installed. And to your point, Michael, it comes with the pro monitoring for a year. So you want that pro monitoring, that's included when a pro does the install for you. Okay. And then to renew the monitoring, a lot of our partners will offer it as part of their maintenance plan. So if you're on the maintenance plan, your contractor may have an option to have a maintenance plan with the monitoring built into it. If you buy the monitoring directly and if you buy the product directly at retail, the product at retail to hook up one sump pump or one dehumidifier, it's about $500. And then the monitoring would be $12 a month. And the monitoring is like a security system. We will actually call you or text you or email you. If you don't want to use another app, if you're not into all the smart home stuff, it's a service. So a lot of people want that service. But then when you get it through your contractor, oftentimes you're going to get better pricing with some included advantages.
Well, plus the contractor install also alerts the contractor too. It's if you're a Crawl Space Ninja customer and we install that Shipshape along with the encapsulation or the basement waterproofing, then we can also see that data. So it's alerting us as well as you, the homeowner. So it's really a nice way for that system to work. And we do run specials on the DIY side. If you're a DIYer, we've got Shipshape available on our DIY store. It's a really easy install. If you are a little bit technical, it's pretty easy to do. You plug it into the back of the router. The app is great at walking you through how to do it, but not everybody's tech savvy and not everybody understands all that. So like you said, the professional can certainly take care of that as well. And I forget what the warranty is on it. Is there a warranty on the Shipshape product?
Yeah, when you have our membership and you have the pro monitoring membership, there's a unlimited device warranty. So if our device breaks and you're a member, we'll send you a new one. I'll say that these devices are made by the same company that makes the Samsung smart things. So Shipshape did not go invent some new devices. We're a software company and a service provider that actually just has the best in class devices. So the devices we're using, they're in millions of homes. So that they really don't break very much, but we give you a ongoing device warranty if you're on our membership. And if you're not on our membership, it's a 1-year standard electronic warranty.
So the lifetime warranty comes with the $12 monitoring. Is that correct? Okay. Yeah. Tell us about some of the other softwares and or devices that you all have partnered with and communicate with, if you don't mind sharing that too.
Yeah, definitely. We wanted to make the home proactive. And you mentioned having the contractor also able to monitor this. The homeowner can monitor this. We provide the monitoring service to both. Ultimately, the goal is to make the home proactive so that people can be informed and make decisions ahead of time. So when we looked at how to do that, the best way to do that is to use this new data that's coming from connected home products, at least sensors going into homes. There's a lot we can do with that to make predictions, to use some AI to figure out how to alert people proactively. So what we've done is, as we've worked with our customers and our partners, we've identified what other products they use in their home that are connected and plugged them into Shipshape. So for example, we plug Google Nest into Shipshape because a lot of our customers have a Google Nest and a lot of our contractors will install Google Nest. And now they want to be able to have Shipshape provide the additional monitoring, like a security system. We will monitor the temperature and the humidity coming from that thermostat and call you if it looks like your AC system broke down. So we've added the Honeywell. A lot of people, a lot of contractors love the Honeywell Residio product. They've got thermostats, leak sensors, humidity sensors that all work with ShipShape. We then added the ecobee, which is Generac thermostat. A lot of customers love that. We've added the Wayne sump pump, the iBasement sump pump, which are two, good approaches to monitoring sump pumps. And some people might say, well, aren't they a competitor? Didn't you say ShipShape makes a sump pump monitor? The way we look at it, if iBasement has a great device and people want to install that, that's awesome. But what they need help with is the ability to monitor that and provide the services and the software that we provide. So we really look at them as a partner, and we're not trying to fight them over whose device gets installed, because we're going to add value on top of all of those devices. We've also got the Tesla Powerwall is the next one that'll come out, which will be really cool. And that'll get us the EV and the solar inverter. So electric vehicle, solar inverter, Powerwall. And we're really starting to expand more into energy. We're doing a lot of energy stuff around HVAC right now. We'll be doing a lot more energy around solar in the near future. So some cool integrations coming. We've just added a whole home energy meter you can put at the circuit breaker, and a heavy duty energy meter you can put on your water heater. So now we've got the ability to measure the energy on literally anything in the house.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. It sounds like you guys are growing to add on all these new partners. And like you said, it's good to have it all in one spot. If you've got a thermostat that is off doing its own thing and your sump pump is doing its own thing and nothing's talking, it's kind of hard for you to log into all these different apps and do everything. And ShipShape brings all that data into one spot for not only the homeowner to see, but if they're on your monitoring, for your people to see. So there's actually people laying eyes on these things too. So, all right, very good. Well, last thing I want to ask you about, which I think is important because I get this question a lot. Why is this a problem now? Why are crawl spaces all of a sudden top of mind? So can you share with me a little bit based on your research and what you've seen, why these crawl spaces are all of a sudden exploding with moisture and mold?
Yeah, there's a few factors here. So first of all, before we put air conditioning in homes, central air conditioning, venting the crawl space made a lot more sense. And we didn't put central air conditioning in the homes until 50-ish years ago. So it's taken us some time to see the consequences of putting the air conditioning in the living environment with a vented crawl space. And what that's doing is it's causing the stack effect to pull air through that crawl space. That the crawl space is condensating because it's cold inside and hot outside, or vice versa. So you create condensation problems, and then that wood starts to rot. Well, it's interesting because it will take several years, on the order of like 10 years, for that wood to really rot through. So you think about my grandmother's house. Her home was built long before central air conditioning came out. They added on air conditioning later. Okay, well, now they've added on air conditioning. It took 20 years, 30 years after they added air conditioning. And now, granted, she had mold for a long time, but she's been living in that house forever. She didn't even know. We didn't even know until after we tore the house down. So I think it took naturally 20, 30 years after putting air conditioning in these homes to start to realize, oh, shoot, this really is potentially causing the floorboards to rot.
Right.
Now, what happened is there became a bunch of debate in the industry. Well, should you vent it or should you seal it? And people didn't really know. There wasn't a consensus until about 2013. So 2013, just barely 10 years ago, is when the US government, the National Renewable Energy Laboratory, did the research and published a research paper saying that vented crawl spaces need to be sealed. That kind of settled the debate. And we saw in 2015, the first building code, so less than 10 years ago, the first building code actually changed. Now, most of the country is still operating on building codes that actually require you to vent the crawl space, even though the federal government has already said that's the wrong way to build a house. So it takes time for these municipalities to update their building codes. And the industry is sort of at this tipping point where people are actually realizing this problem needs solved. And one thing that's accelerating it is the extreme weather. You have severe rainstorms that are are falling with significantly more rain than they did 50 years ago. So making, insult to injury, when we put air conditioning in the homes, a severe rainstorm was significantly less amount of rainfall than it is now. Just so in the Southeast, it's about a 27% increase. In the Northeast, it's 67% increase. So these rainstorms have gotten bigger. And similarly, the extreme heat and extreme cold has gotten worse. We're seeing once in 50-year freezes every other year lately. So you add the extreme weather with the recognition of building science, and all of a sudden, both the experts and the homeowners are saying, wait a minute, we actually need to fix these crawl spaces.
Yeah, I've probably been in thousands of crawl spaces, and it seems like it's the same story. Normally it's a couple that has had their house for 20 years. They could have even built the house. And then all of a sudden they get this explosion of moisture and mold in the crawl space. And I always ask them, I was like, well, did you get your HVAC updated? And, a lot of times they put in some old Sears unit that was barely spitting out cold air and all that kind of stuff. And then they updated to one of these, high SEER rated whatevers. And now all of a sudden their crawl space is exploded with moisture because Mother Nature is throwing heat and humidity into that crawl space, hitting that super cold duct, condensating and just exploding with moisture. And it's normally within 2 years after they've updated their HVAC system that somebody goes in the crawl space and sees huge mold problems down there. Mm-hmm. So I agree with you. I think the heating and air system itself is a problem. The fact that the ductworks leak are a problem. The more leaky the ductwork, the more it's going to condensate down in that crawl space. And the other thing, like you mentioned, in the state of Tennessee, builders have the ability to create either a vented crawl space when they build a house or a sealed crawl space when they build a house. Guess which one they're choosing? They're choosing the vented. Why? Because it's cheaper. That's why. They don't have to encapsulate it. It makes it a cheaper build for them, and they only have to warranty the house for a year. So what do they care, right? I mean, the people lobbying in our government are not lobbying for the homeowner; they're lobbying for the builders. Right. So that creates a problem. That creates tension. I get people all the time. Well, why do they build crawl spaces this way? Because it's cheap. It's always about the money, man. That's why they build crawl spaces this way. Do you agree with that? Do you find the same thing?
100%. I mean, and if you're a builder, you want to maximize the living square feet, the finishes that people pay for. We, as experts in the industry, need to educate homeowners to understand that actually they're going to pay for the cheaper build construction. And people are waking up to that. The data is starting to show that. And so I do think that behavior may change, but right now it's just out of sight, out of mind.
Yep.
I don't think anyone's trying to do wrong, but it's just the way the market ends up. And it is ending up building homes wrong. They're making people sick. I'll leave you with 2 statistics that I think are really powerful on this. By the way, the HVAC industry cares about this a lot. They're trying to solve it too. So it's not like they don't want this to happen either. But since we put central air conditioning into homes, the rate of asthma in the US population has increased 2.5-fold. Now, I can't tell you that that's exactly causation, but I can tell you that correlation is mind-blowing.
Yep.
We have 2.5 times as many people with asthma. I'm seeing commercials for adult inhalers. You're not supposed to just develop asthma as an adult. That's because of an environmental condition, pollution or mold. People are developing asthma, and it's costing the United States over $80 billion a year to deal with the economic problem of asthma. That's hospital bills and kids missing school. So the other thing that's making this worse is air conditioning systems are very complicated to install and to size them properly. And they've gotten much more advanced. So about 4 out of 10 air conditioning systems going into homes are oversized. Don't mean for them to be oversized, but the old rules of thumb that those experts used are not working as well. The Department of Energy just put out a grant that we applied for to help them address the problem with the fact that all these HVAC units are oversized. And when they're oversized, they might make your house cold really fast, but they don't run for long enough to take the humidity out of the air.
Right.
So we're having humidity problems are getting worse in the homes as we swap out all these AC units and put in ones that are too big.
Well, and to your point, statistically, I read even before COVID, we spend 90% of our time indoors. And, humidity is the number one cause of dust mites. If you got high humidity, you got high dust mite populations. If you got high dust mite populations, it's the number one cause of asthma among children. So if your AC unit isn't cycling long enough to help control humidity, then you're going to have high humidity. Even if your AC unit is running properly, depending on how your house was constructed, you could still have high humidity. That's why we always think humidity is the number one enemy that we face. But Alex, this has been great, man. I really appreciate you coming on. And listen, I just hopefully I can have you back, because I love talking about this kind of stuff and educating homeowners about this sort of thing. So really appreciate you being here. And any last thing to say to everybody before we go?
No, I would just say thank you for the work that you're doing. This is a very, very important problem to solve. We spend 90% of our time inside. 70% of homes have mold growing in them. 100% of crawl spaces that are vented have mold growing in them. Like, the work you're doing, and it's to actually hit this head on, is super important. Unfortunately, the way that a lot of the industry looks at it is it's taboo. Like, let's not talk about mold. We don't want to introduce the risk of it. Someone's got to talk about it. Someone's got to actually just say, well, this is mold. You're at risk of getting sick from it. We've got to pay to deal with it. And so I think the work you're doing to hit it head on is super important. We're excited to be working with you. We're excited to be working with a lot of contractors like you. I think seems to be a lot of inertia, a lot of momentum in the market of people who care about it and they're ready to solve this problem.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you for saying that, Alex. And I'm Michael Church with Crawl Space Ninja. I'm going to put a link to that mold guide that I was telling you about earlier up above. And I hope you make it a happy and blessed day, and we'll see you later.
Thanks, Michael. Take care.